Issue 63. Belle gives Whisper her Wispawn back fully repaired. I like that it took so many issues for her to fix it, because I guess it makes it realistic. I'd expect a Sonic comic to have it take one issue. Eventually it turns out Belle doesn't have the new gaskets ready for a boss for no reason, as if she spent literally all of her time repairing the Wispawn and apologizes, and Tangle gets ready to run off because she's on a new training schedule. Why in the world would Tangle and Whisper have training when they're the experienced freedom fighters and Lanolin's brand new to the action? Tangle's less experienced, but still. I guess Lanolin thinks she needs to train with somebody. Whisper runs into Silver, who apologizes, and eventually, because he doesn't know what to do, he's invited by Whisper to train with her. As if he needs any training. Lanolin expects me to believe the Restoration's re-greening effort hasn't reached a part of Green Hill Zone they're in that's clearly still got grass in it. The artist and writer didn't collaborate. Lanolin wants them to work on coordinating moves and talking in the field. Why does she think they'll need help with that? And then the story wastes more time with Mimic talking to Silver pretending to be nice. How do the writers not realize I have no reason to care about anything he says? He eventually gets Silver to show off his power lifting some boulders and kicks him to make him drop them. It'd be common sense of him to know that he was kicked by him, and of Mimic to know that this gave him away. The kick throws off his concentration enough to make him drop the boulders, and then a giant robot threatens them both from behind. As Whisper and her friends are surrounded by water, Tangle throws her tail up to a higher area so that Lanolin can hold her hand, and Whisper can hold hers. Whisper hovers while they hold her, and end up getting to a higher place and seeing Silver. And Silver gets told off for not tearing the giant robot apart already. Since this is by Evan Stanley, he gives a bullshit excuse for why he can't based on it moving at all, as I remember that he made a giant ball of cars, which must have had their cars still in the process of moving when he grabbed them, and bent bars in 06, proving he can bend objects too. Then he sees Duo trying to leave him inside of a giant robot, and I guess he's too focused on the fact that he can't keep the teeth from trapping him to comment on the fact that Mimic's eyes became black again for no reason, which he would tell Lanolin about right away. You'd think if his telekinesis could go against the movement of speeding cars to put them all to a big ball, he'd destroy the teeth and everything. Why would the contents of one boss fight not be canon, when IDW acts like the games are canon to it, and never acts like the bosses were any different? When Perfect Chaos is canon, the robot gets destroyed, there's an explosion behind him, and logic ensues as Silver finally gets himself out of there. He tells him off for ditching him, and when he's lied to, somehow Silver doesn't proceed to say that he obviously kicked him, which he'd have felt. Because with these two writers, all of the characters lose their brain cells in any way because the plot demanded it. This time he's so stupid that he forgot something memorable. It's written like bad modern SpongeBob, where the characters are written around the plot instead of the plot being written around the characters. As Lanolin says they shouldn't point fingers, and he somehow doesn't explain that he saw his eyes turn black. I really wonder why the writer wanted to push back Mimic being discovered by the rest of them. With the writers wanting us to love Lanolin because she's the new Sally, why on earth are we being made to hate her by her being totally wrong? Somehow he says it was an accident instead of saying he was kicked. Then in the next scene, Silver is on a roof, and finally Whisper tells Silver that she saw Mimic kick him, and he says that his eyes changed color. So thankfully he did see that. But there's still no excuse for him thinking he tripped. If he can't feel his kick, then why does he say ow when he gets hurt? The story ends without her explaining that of course she didn't tell Lanolin and Tangle the truth, because then he'd start trying to kill them right away. I'm relieved, but that story wasn't worth the idiot bolt he gave Silver. I have never seen someone be more disrespectful to the character. Apart from Ghost to the Future, which is written by the same writer. Pandos has his trademark of caring about echidnas and world building, and her trademark is making Silver a wimpy moron. But at least she tries to write new ideas. While Morpho already did the concept of a shapeshifter trying to join a team of freedom fighters, I haven't seen a plot like this before. In the next story, Blaze runs around next to Sonic, who avoids a swinging sharp pendulum in Spigonia. Is the writer gonna care enough to explain that Eggman put that there? Or be lazy? Because this was a million years after Unleashed. You'd think Sonic would have told people to get rid of it and it'd long since be removed. So far, the story is doing nothing but wasting my time with them running around, being totally uninteresting, with the only thing that passes for a new idea being that Blaze has never been here before. Am I supposed to be impressed? Just because Spigonia showed up again? Really? You could play as Blaze in Sonic Generations with a mod and go through Spigonia whenever you want. Sonic asks Blaze if she'd like to eat at a restaurant with him, and she apologizes and says she was distracted. He says it's gorgeous up on the clock tower, and she says she loves his world and wonders if she should strive to protect it too. They have some more boring, very predictable dialogue after that, where he tries to make her feel better, and finally the clock makes a loud noise, reminding her that they're high up. She's annoyed by his pun, and he says he wants her to have fun. They shake hands, and he offers to just grab some food from the restaurant on the go because he promised he'd have lunch with his friends. The story ends there, having accomplished nothing to progress the plot and actually matter. So that was it? Why aren't we getting to see people in Spigonia? What's the point of showing a new city to do world building if you portray it as a ghost town? Maybe they'd only be allowed to show Mobians there because of Sega's Two Worlds idea, where they said classic Sonic was from another dimension all of a sudden. The fact that the writers did this instead of simply showing Mobians in Spigonia proves that they still think this is a place where humans live. You have to go into fan theory mode and assume this is a Spigonia with nothing but Mobians in it to have it fit with the idea that there's two worlds. But since it's written by Sonic fans, they're used to thinking of Spigonia as inhabited by humans. And the simplest explanation is usually true. I always understood not showing any people in the place they were running around, specifically because it was a Sonic level, so I wouldn't expect people there. But not even showing the inside of a restaurant like the reboot did makes me wonder why Spigonia was chosen if they couldn't show it to be the way they wanted anyways. Everyone would assume they wouldn't be allowed to use any place names from Unleashed in IDW because that's the human world. And them getting away with this implies that either Sega went back on the Two Worlds idea, or they're fine with being told there's a copy of Spigonia on Mobius. You'd expect Sega to force them to show Mobians there if they really cared about enforcing the Two Worlds retcon, or force them to show them going through a portal to go to the other dimension. So either they don't because of backlash, or Sega doesn't actually make them follow the Two Worlds rule, and people just read too much into the absence of civilians. After all, when Sonic told Shadow Eggman tried to save the world, and almost destroyed the world, he only said the world, not your world or Earth. Like it actually talked like there were two worlds. Like it actually talked like if Sega really wanted us to think there were two worlds. The point is, this two worlds thing can't be canon to the games anymore. Either that, or IDW isn't canon to the games, and Sega just lied to boost sales for IDW. Issue 64. It starts out wasting comic space and time on Whisper reiterating who Mimic was. She says greed meant more to him than his friends. Maybe it just wasn't memorable, which would be the case if we didn't see Eggman giving him tons of bags of money. But I don't remember money being the reason why he betrayed her team. I remember that he did it because he knew Eggman's side was winning and he wanted Eggman to leave him alone. Whisper says one mistake and Mimic's done. I doubt he'll actually be killed off. That'd be common sense, to kill off a character who doesn't have any potential to be sympathetic or productive, especially if he got replaced by a better shapeshifter. With it suddenly being dawn when it was night the last time they talked, Silver whispers to Whisper while hiding in the bushes near civilians that they've been following Mimic all day and he hasn't done anything creepy enough to give them an excuse. It's smart of him to stick around civilians who think he's innocent all the time, because he knows they need proof before they strike. And Whisper knows that too. Silver wonders if being in danger is what causes his eyes to change color, when that's bullshit because when he was running from Whisper disguised as Sonic, he never had black eyes no matter how scared he was. If scaring him was all it'd take to break his disguise, people would have seen him break his disguise as Sonic, and Tango would have never thought he was Sonic. Whisper would tell him this immediately. She would have known Mimic long enough to know that fear doesn't make him shapeshift back to his original self. I mean, that's common sense. He would have to make an effort to shapeshift back to his original self. And there's no way he would think fear is why he had his eyes go back to normal anyways, because he was smirking. It'd be obvious to anybody who was giving up on his disguise because he thought Silver was done for and he wanted to scare him. Nothing would make him shapeshift around other people. So because bullshit, Silver plans to give him a little spook and gets warned that they can't get away with hurting him. Silver tells him not to worry and he uses telekinesis to make Mimic fall over, and his shoe catches the railing near a staircase. He gets grabbed and pulled up by Lanolin, who really does know it's Silver. Why the fuck is she here? It'd be common sense of the writer to not write another scene where she somehow doesn't fucking know that Mimic's evil, even though she would have seen him kick Silver. It is embarrassing just how many pages are being spent on this. Who's gonna care enough to read all this dialogue? She even has Lanolin throw Whisper to the ground. Like she wants us to hate her. All because these two wasted their breath trying to convince her of the truth, and she somehow didn't believe them. What's wrong with her? There is no way she would trust a random new recruit over them. She really should stick to lighthearted fluff. I hope Lanolin gets karma. There's no reason she would think they were lying about what they saw the other day. Silver sees Mimic trying to sneak away and uses telekinesis to float the chairs near him, and he smirks and pretends to be scared and lets go to make himself fall to the floor. And for no reason at all, Silver doesn't immediately know that he fell on purpose. And for some reason the writer thought we wanted to see people sympathize with Mimic, thinking they should call Medic. And even thought we wanted to see Whisper jump to the conclusion that he wasn't Mimic, even though it's common sense that he wouldn't have shapeshifted because people were seeing him. And even though him being Mimic would be the only reason why his eyes would turn black in front of Silver, and he'd kick Silver. How inconvenient that not only did she not see his eyes return to normal, but Silver isn't saying he saw that. If the writer doesn't even have basic spatial awareness, we're in big trouble. To paraphrase TV Trash, a bad story has you mad at the writer, not just the characters. It's so obvious nobody would want to see scenes like this. It's so obvious it was supposed to focus on Mimic being outside on another mission ready to be exposed. Some more melodrama happens as somehow even Silver thinks Mimic was just some guy, even though he should still remember that he saw his eyes turn black, and he'd just say that to Jewel. And Lanolin tells Silver to stay away from the diamond cutters, even though he's got telekinesis, which could deal with any enemy instantly. How in the world would the writer think this is good? But she's proud of issue 53, the worst issue in the comic. And I'm guessing Tangle's gonna betray him too, and yep, she does. I wish the editor had actual power over this comic, because all of these scenes would be gone if he was doing his job. Jewel visits Mimic in his hospital bed, as I wonder if his ability as a shapeshifter could let him heal his own injuries. He's really dedicated to this, and Jewel offers to let him work directly for her. There's no indication that there were cameras in that giant building where tons of people go that would have seen Mimic's eyes change color. And good God, that's the end of the story. Wasn't it common sense to have a story about him getting a ton of slapstick and exposed for who he really is instead of this? Someone needs to tell the writers that just having a bunch of depressing drama doesn't make for an enjoyable story, unless you're a masochist. Likable characters carry a story, and I hate all of them here. I don't think anyone would have liked them if this was the first issue they were exposed to them all in. Silver wouldn't have given him a spook in the first place, they'd just wait for a new mission. In the next story, We see Blaze running around with Sonic near a place called Emeraldville Ruins, even though there's still civilians there and perfectly intact buildings. I hope the story's interesting this time, because I'm pretty surprised that we're seeing Blaze and Sonic hang out together alone again. I'm not the only one who's noticed that Sonic's been sidelined in favor of OCs that are either stupid or assholes. Blaze states that the lunches from Tails to Amy are warm enough now because of Sonic's speed alone. It is impressive, because it never happened before, and it's trying to take advantage of Sonic's speed, reminding me of Mike Gallagher. I think I'd prefer for his speed to decrease the temperature of something though, because you'd think him running would cause the wind to rush past it and cool it down faster than any sort of friction could heat it up. Blaze is holding a piece of cake, so at least we know what she likes to eat the most. And Sonic says he's pretty sure Tails has a gizmo that heats up food perfectly when he puts a day-old chili dog in it. At first I was just impressed that it was established Tails has an awesome invention he doesn't normally have, but Sonic's dialogue is nonsensical here. At first he says he's pretty sure, as if he isn't certain that the invention exists, and then he talks as if he's used it before. Normally I prefer original settings over game settings, but I have no attachment to this place, because there's no history established in it. The IDW settings are so forgettable that I don't even remember when it showed up before, or if it even did. Maybe I would have preferred a game setting with civilians in it. I don't feel as much like they actually got to explore more of the world. Just when I was wondering if this story would be fantastic for once, they see Silver looking upset. Oh no, the stories are gonna intersect. Unless this leads to Mimic being beaten up a lot and exposed, this won't be worth it. It's sad when AOSCH looks better, because there was tons of cartoon slapstick against villains in that show. Why in the world are we being shown Silver repeating this bullshit idea that he was somehow wrong about who Mimic is? Who would ever want to see that? I'm not the only one who's noticed how stupid Silver's being. This issue is so pathetically boring that I've just skimmed some of its dialogue because I know I'll be missing nothing. All there is that's good about this is that Blaze is reassuring him and he thanks her. How about the story be about action instead? Wasn't that why people started to like Sonic? Hello? There's good downtime stories, and this doesn't qualify because Silver ruined it. Sonic says the two are great together. I don't care about ship tease in a comic that doesn't have the guts to make characters get together. Not that I would be super enthused about anyways, since it'd be an opposites attract ship, but at least I could be a little happy for them because they'd get to kiss each other. You can't replace genuinely good writing with hollow fan service. His line just reminds me of how uncreative it is to have Blaze and Silver interact yet again, because it's a Sonic 06 reference. Sonic blathers worthless dialogue and eventually says he'll see him later. I don't know why Silver's wishing he was allowed to throw a car at him when he was just being nice to him. It's not like he was being nasty to his friends. And Blaze bores me comparing Silver to Sonic. Hello, we're not reading a Sonic comic to see you play psychoanalyst here. It's like the writer's trying to prove that he gets the characters. But the most constant problem with Flynn's writing is a constant disconnect between what I expect the characters to be like and how he writes them. I don't expect them to be complete idiots, and both of the writers are equally guilty apparently. Eventually, Blaze thanks Silver, and eventually offers to go see the world with him. He questions her telling a time travel joke. Do I even have to explain that Blaze telling a joke is out of character? Her backstory is that she was bullied and had no friends until recently. Sally is more believable to tell a joke than she is. And the story has the gall to end there, being officially a clueless waste of time with no idea how to appeal to me. You know, it sucks when every issue recently just has me thinking, that's it? I can't believe this was a whole issue. It also has a goal to have them plan on visiting Soliana, because clearly the Sonic fanbase loves Sonic 06 so much, right Flynn? I'd be more interested in them saying Soliana if I had any faith whatsoever that we'd see it. and they do new things with it, but they're too chicken to do it because it's from 06. The first story by Evan Stanley was of course about Silver being a complete idiot who didn't know Mimic kicked him to make him drop boulders over people, and who takes more than 1 second to destroy a robot when he was able to grab and move them around multiple at once in Sonic 06, with a bullshit excuse that it's because it's moving when the robots in 06 were always moving. This isn't the Silver from the games at all. It comes off like the writer never even saw Silver in 06. At least I've never seen a plot where this happened before. And I'm really glad Mimic gave himself away already, because I was insanely bored every time he talked to someone pretending to be good. Because I know he's pretending. So extending that would only be more of that torture where I don't care about his dialogue. The whole story wouldn't have happened because Leyland had no reason to think a team of experienced freedom fighters would need practice coordinating moves and talking to each other, without at least admitting that she's the only one who needs training. And anybody would be good at that right away anyways. And the second story was by Ian Flynn, and I could tell because it was nothing but boring nostalgia pandering with almost no creativity, where Sonic and Blaze run through a level in Spigonia, just because, with nothing happening. At least in the reboot they had a good reason to go there and talk to people. Go figure, she wants to protect both worlds. I didn't need a whole story for that. He expects Blaze being here alone to make the issue amazing, when I'd only agree if he cared enough to explain why the pendulum's still there. Like he thinks we should think it's normal for it to be under a city. It's just insulting. I miss having writers that cared enough to do really dedicated world building. Usually Flynn writes the stories that matter, and has Evan stick with the padding. The only part of this issue that wasn't boring was when Tangle figured out how to survive Mimic's treachery. I just have to assume they only had to be in Spigonia, a level that's supposedly in the human world instead of some other old level, because they want to hint to the fans that there aren't two worlds in IDW. But it doesn't really do a good job because we still don't see people in there. The first story by Evan Stanley was a pathetically frustrating waste where instead of it being about Mimic getting exposed in a mission and getting a ton of cartoon slapstick like everyone wants, it had the goal to have Silver grab the idiot's ball thinking that Mimic loses his disguise when scared, even though Whisper would know better, and he was smirking when he saw his eyes turn black. And good writing as characters make mistakes for a reason. And somehow, the writer thought we wanted to see an entire scene of the rest of the Diamond Cutters and civilians thinking that Mimic's innocent because he let himself get hurt by Silver. So Lanolyn's stupid enough to kick a telekinetic off her team instead of just sending Mimic to work for Jewel away from him and saying that's good enough. I mean, can you imagine if a superhero team in superhero fiction kicked off a telekinetic because of one mistake? And somehow, the writer thought she could get away with pushing the reset button on Silver and Whisper knowing that it's really Mimic. She somehow thought that was a good idea that was believable to pad out the Mimic arc. It'd be common sense of the characters to at least put Mimic under surveillance just in case he is Mimic. It's not like they were hit with an amnesia ray. I mean, that would annoy me too because I just wanted him to be ousted already. But we saw one in Sad AM. This is pathetically forced because they saw his eyes change to black, and Whisper saw him kick him. But somehow, they don't explain this evidence. I can't believe this is a writer that claims to love Silver while doing nothing but writing like an idiot who gets no respect from everybody else, when no other writer is that mean to him, with only Flynn coming close. It's pathetic how clueless and misguided this story is, and what's also pathetic is I'm mostly resigned to how horrible the writing is because this is normal for these writers. Any good story and good thing is just fleeting or empty fan service. It won't even last 10 issues with good quality. The only reason someone would adore this issue, any bad issue of this comic, was if he thought good art made an issue perfect. I don't let art brainwash me into liking bad issues. I don't let the fact that it involves characters I like brainwash me either. When said characters are being unlikable, missing the appeal. Who's expecting the next story to be like this? The last line in it was, "We're going hunting." They would have waited until the next mission. If the Sonic characters were this brainless in the games, most people would hate all of them. The second story by Ian Flynn only had the first panel be fantastic, only to devolve into a boring waste of time because we see Silver angst that he was wrong about Duo being Mimic, when it should be obvious that we wouldn't want to see that. Maybe it would have been worthwhile if we weren't told by the story that he definitely is Mimic, because then it'd be a mystery. But there are other excuses the writer could have for Blaze being nice to Silver, so it'd be stupid to think that makes the issue good. And why is so much time dedicated to comparing Silver and Sonic? We know what they have in common, we're not idiots. This story sucks because nothing actually happens in it when it's supposed to be an action series, and the writer doesn't know what fast pacing is. It would have been good if Silver wasn't in it, and it just had Sonic stop a thief running away with someone's purse. To think I was looking forward to this issue because I thought it'd resolve a plot thread, silly me. I always expect the writing to end stuff an issue or two before it does.